To be real and relatable in English, it's about the children and the young people seeing themselves in what they're being presented with and seeing its relevance to their lives, rather than being something quite abstract that might not have anything to do with them. It's about them seeing how it relates to them as an individual, potentially with special educational needs and disabilities in my field particularly, because before you're able to relate to the world and to other spheres, other texts, other cultures, other people, etc., you've got to be able to relate to yourself. So the starting point is for young people to be able to see the relevance to them in their individual circumstances, whatever they might be. So they may be, maybe they're neurodiverse. Are they being given examples where neurodiversity is impacting, or where you can see how that applies to the way that they like to think and interact with the world? If they've got, say, a physical or a sensory need or disability, is that being reflected in the material that they're being presented with and the tasks that they're being asked to do? So it's not just about creating access for them to be able to do the task, but about the task itself having relevance to somebody who may have a special need or disability. Why is it important that it's relatable? I think it's important on both an individual level, but also on a wider societal level. So for an individual, it's about developing self-esteem, self-confidence, that flexibility and with the world, flexibility of approach, and developing empathy as well. So helping an individual to not only understand themselves, but to understand how other people might perceive them and how other people might be feeling in different situations. But I think on a wider societal level, it's that importance of developing cultural inclusion and wider societal empathy. So for all of us to be able to understand other people's perspectives and priorities through English is such a key vehicle to be able to do that. And I think there's so much potential within a really effective English curriculum to develop those sorts of skills. And for our learners with SEND, that might need a slightly different approach, but they also need to see themselves represented in those materials as well, whatever they might be. The best way to support all learners, regardless of background or ability, is really to use what we call inclusion by design. So if we're making sure that our classrooms, our curriculum, our qualifications, the way that we teach is as inclusive as possible at that very early stage, so from the design stage. So when we're thinking about what a qualification might look like, or what a curriculum might look like, or what our lessons might look like, right from the start, are we building in all of those aspects that make it as inclusive as possible from the beginning, which means then we need to make fewer adjustments and adaptations for those learners with SEND. So, for example, are we using language which is understood by all? And if it's not currently understood by all, are we making sure that we're building in explicit teaching of that language, particularly when we're thinking around those sort of tier 2 language words, the vocabulary that we need and that our learners really need to understand in order to succeed in their curriculum and in their qualifications? Are we presenting material in a way that's accessible? So are we offering visual support rather than being heavily reliant on the auditory mode? There's a risk that if teachers and others do an awful lot of talking, that some learners will find that really difficult to access. So is the talking, which is the auditory mode, being supported by a visual mode as well? That really helps and makes it accessible for all. What's the sensory environment like within a classroom and within a lesson? So is it calm enough and quiet enough in order for everybody to be able to really listen and take in the information, but at the same time, is there enough opportunity for all our learners to speak and to talk with each other? How are we enabling learners to demonstrate their learning and their understanding? Does that always have to be through writing, which can be quite exclusionary for some learners? Are we giving all learners opportunities to present their understanding in different ways, whether that might be visually through drawing or artwork, or it might be a visual representation through a diagram, use of IT, a verbal presentation, drama, art, etc., etc. Are we being as creative as possible at that design stage to increase access for all of our learners to the curriculum? It's about starting from the perspective of the individual. So as long as we're understanding that every child or young person sitting in front of us is an individual with different strengths and different areas where they might need support, there isn't a separate group of children who have SEND who are different to all other children. All our children and young people have individual needs, strengths and difficulties. So I think if we start from that perspective and then think about, are our learners with a disability, for example, going to see themselves represented in this material? Are they going to see its relevance to their lives? Are we talking about things that include their perspective? And are we enabling them to share their own perspective and their own understanding through the materials that they're being presented with and through the work that they're being asked to do as well?